Hey folks, so today I'm gonna vlog about two things. I hope it's gonna be a short video, but I just wanted to talk over these two things. The first thing is you should always read something twice, and the second thing is that patience is an illusion. And what's funny is that I actually bought this thing here to remind myself that patience is a virtue. But actually, no, I'm trying to think differently, and I'm trying to think that patience is just an illusion, and that's not something that you should pursue. But anyway, these two things are related, and you'll see why I won't say that on the second half of this video. But the first thing I want to say is that you should always read something twice. And that's something that my coworker, Sunil, at ZK Security said during a discussion that we're having with the team on what's a good way to audit code and what are good techniques and these kind of things. And I know Sunil is one of probably the best auditors that I've had the luck to work with in my career. And so I thought about what he said, that he always reads things twice. Um, and I feel like whenever I'm successful at doing something, that's basically something that happens, and maybe more than twice. And I do that when I read papers as well. Basically, anything complicated that's going to take me a while to understand, I tend to read multiple times. And in the first time, I tend to read pretty quickly and fast. And this reminds me of the book Thinking Fast and Slow that I've never read, but maybe that's what they talk about. Someone can tell me that in the comments if that's what they say in the book. But basically, the first time you just read it as fast as you can, and the second time, no, you have more context. You sort of build a mental model of what is where, how things work, even though you might not understand anything, but at least you know where what's sort of going on at a high level, in a very vague way potentially. And so the second pass is much slower, and you can focus on understanding things. And another thing that we were discussing, and Sunil mentioned that he will think about what he read later and try to explain it back to himself and see if he can explain it. And maybe by doing that, he will realize that he doesn't understand something, or maybe he'll find a bug this way. And I've noticed a similar pattern when I really understand something is because I thought about it away from keyboard. Maybe that's something I should coin, thinking away from keyboard, TAFK or something like that. But that's something I do. Like I take walks, or I go in the shower, or um, I'll before sleeping I'll think about something. Usually this is bad because it prevents me from sleeping. Like I'll get so excited sometimes, and I won't be able to sleep. But it's just like time away from the keyboard, thinking about what you read, trying to understand it, trying to basically create that mental model in your head, like solidify it, strengthen it in a way. And I believe that this is an important part of the process. Maybe that's the second point I want to make in this read things twice. But I think it's interesting because often the first read, it's nice if you can make it enough, if you can read enough, so that you can think about what you read without having to look bad at the code. And often the first read is not enough because you read through things quite rapidly, but you can, TAFK, think away from the keyboard after that first read, and try to explain things to yourself, or try to understand things by yourself, recreate that, spend some time there, and then it makes you want to dig back into the code or the paper or whatever to solidify. You understand some stuff, and then you're like, oh, but wait, how do they solve that? Okay, no, I need to understand that. Or I'm reading this paper. Okay, I understand what they're doing. Okay, that makes sense. But wait, it doesn't work this way. Okay, let me go back in the paper to try to understand what they're doing exactly. And so this idea of reading things fast once and slowly another time, and being able to basically focus on that process, like when you're starting something, when you're starting to read a paper and starting to read a code base or something like that, you don't understand anything. You have very little context. And so if you just focus on, instead of trying to focus on understanding, you just focus on bringing as much context as possible in your, um, short-term memory, in your L1 cache, in your context window, if you're an LLM or something like that. Just bring as much as possible, and then you can think about it, and then you can understand things, and then you can um, TAFK, or have a second slow read, a slow read through the code base, or the paper or whatever. Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is that, and it's related as well. When you're doing that first pass, it's easy to be impatient and be frustrated by the lack of understanding, and you're reading something, you don't understand it, and if you think the goal is to understand something, then you're quickly going to get frustrated and you're going to give up. But if you understand that the goal is the process, and the goal is really to accumulate as much in context as possible, even if you don't understand it, it doesn't matter. The first step is not to understand. The first step is just to accumulate as much as you can. Then it makes things better. The second thing is, you don't build patience by thinking about being patient. Patience is not something you get by trying to be patient. For example, I can play video games for, I don't know, 6 hours in a row if I wanted, and it's going to be very easy. I'm not going to have to be patient. I'm not going to have to like sit and painfully read something. It's going to be very easy because I love playing games, and I've, trained that neural pathways many, many, many times in the past. So it's very easy. And I've seen people that struggle to sit through a game for like even 30 minutes because they're not used to play a game, and it's too hard to enter a game, and so on. And the thing is, I think it's the same for anything you do, for sport, for intellectual thinking, for writing code, for anything like that. You just need to create these neural pathways. You just need to torture yourself a bit, really force yourself to. And by the way, you can only do that by repetition and forced self torture, basically. And then once you get the neural pathways, it's very easy, and then you can you can take pleasure in what you're doing. But you're not gonna, and then that's when other people look at you and be like, "Oh my God, they're so patient! Like um, they can really get through these things without feeling bad about themselves, or whatever." But it's not patience; it's an illusion. You're not patient. You just trained yourself through a lot of pain by doing it systematically every day for a period of time, and then you got better because your brain got better at it. um and same is true for, like, if you're playing chess or you're playing Go or any of these things. It's going to be very painful, and once your pathways get there, it's going to be very pleasurable to just do it over and over and over again. So every time you look at a new paper, every time you look at a new code base, you get better at it, but you always sort of start from scratch again. And so there's always that pain that, it's kind of hard to get into it again. And so I think it's good at this point to understand that you just have to trick your brain and, change, like, use all sorts of hacks that you can think of, like, change your environment, motivate yourself with like self-given goals, try to figure out like a nice goal about it. For me, for many years, my goal was always to explain something. So I would write a blog post or, a book at some point about these concepts. And so that was the driving factor for me. I wanted to be able to understand it so that I could explain it. Everybody's different. Everybody has different reasons to get there. But you need something that makes it fun. You need something that makes it interesting enough that you can torture yourself and get there. And so when I audit a code base or when I read a paper or something like that, it might take several days, but at some point there's a click after I force myself enough where it's just pleasurable, and I just sweep through the code, and I can lose myself for, I don't know, 8 hours in a row, and it doesn't feel like work, and it just feels like, wow, I'm understanding things, and I'm taking so much pleasure from that, and I can, yeah, forget that I'm doing something hard or that I'm torturing myself, and it looks like I'm patient, but I'm not. It's not patience. And yeah, that's my point. Patience is an illusion. All right, my computer just went out. I guess um, I don't know. I spoke for too long without moving the mouse, and that probably is a good sign that this video went on for too long. I've been rambling a lot. I mean, this is what vlogs are for. I guess this is for rambling. If I really wanted to sit down and think about structuring and architecturing my thoughts, then I would be writing instead, or making a good video, not a vlog. So anyway, hopefully this is useful to some people, and I don't know if I'm gonna vlog more, but this is it for today.